Actually, I'm very nervous today because you guys are all real business people in media, and I think I exist beyond the fringes of legitimacy in something that used to be called advertising. But now I have to call it engineering of idea-centric, media-neutral participation platforms. In any case, I'm also nervous here because this is not about media specifics, but really creating for the rest of your discussion a more broad canvas of what the China business environment is like. And again, because we advertising people indulge in something called insights, fundamental motivations for behavior and preference, I'm going to beg your indulgence in two ways. The first way is that I deal in 30 minutes here, so there's going to be sweeping generalizations here. So please put your guns in your pocket, the arrows back in your quiver, and then let's have a little bit of a debate afterwards. And the second reason is I'm going to start a little bit broadly in terms of certain cultural imperatives and then whittle it down to what I consider the one master insight, the master tension in the heart of modern middle-class Chinese, the people who are indulging in social media at unprecedented rates in ways that are different from in the West, and then move into a few golden rules of marketing, and then finally some observations on the internet scene in terms of the cultural linkages. So let's begin. Again, China has changed. And, you know, I used to be a very typical American. I should say I'm not a Republican, so. But I came to Asia in 1994 thinking that Asians and Chinese in particular were becoming more like us. In fact, that is what a lot of we Americans think. 很多的美国人是比较宅. So let's take a look at the typical impression of the West vis-a-vis China. It's changed a lot. Please play. Then, dark, dusty, crushingly poor, suppressed, polluted. Heavy industry. Bad haircuts. Rampant safety concerns, health scandals, 60% smoking rates. But things are changing. Obviously, resurgent economic growth, not just in the first-tier cities, but the second and the third and the lower-tier cities as well. Self-expression, liberation, incremental climb up the value chain, high-tech, Wangba, the power and the rise of the internet for self-expression, social medias that define identity, brands. That China is the least cynical brand market on the face of the planet because brands are tools for success. A bright new era that's looking more and more like the West. But in fact, China is not becoming more and more like the West. China is becoming modern, China is becoming internationalized, but it is not becoming Western. The basic relationship between individual and society is different. And just to illustrate this point very quickly, let me show you a series of Tmall advertising. It's one of the most successful e-commerce portals targeted to youth. Which gives you the impression that things are evolving in our direction. But if you go one level deeper, maybe not. So call me trendy. Call me 有品. 这个是什么意思? 有品, having style. Call me a little bit sexually aggressive. Call me, I can't exactly, trendy, I guess. Call me cute and lovely. Call me cultured. Call me having style and high tech. Call me stylish again. I'm getting this. Call me, what's this? Cutesy wootsy, would you call it? The Chinese equivalent of kawaii in Japan. And call me classic. So when you take a look at those, you know, there is self-expression happening amongst Chinese youth. But one of the most controversial things that I believe is that Chinese are not becoming individualistic in the sense of Westerners becoming individualistic. And it's very careful, we must define our terms. I'm defining individualism as the encouragement of society to define yourself independent of society. In China, this is not happening in the way that we think it is. And this is what affects, in my very humble, non-expert opinion, the very different topography of China's digital landscape. Why are Chinese people so much more into social media, even than other countries are? Because it is a way of engaging with society in a safe way. But I'll come back to that a little bit at the end of the presentation. I want to play for you right now a De Beers advertisement from the United States. This one would be laughed off the screens in China. Again, the basic social structure and the engagement with society is different. Marriage in China is not between two people only, it is about two families. When in America, in the West, when we say a diamond is forever, we mean romantic passion that lasts a lifetime. And as we'll see, those are different values even today in 2013 in China. Let's play this very quintessentially American diamond ad. Passion that lasts a lifetime.
Happy anniversary, honey.
Yeah, happy anniversary.
Yeah, there's something I gotta do.
Oh, yeah? What?
Okay. Well, I love this woman! I love her! I love her!
What are you doing? Stop.
Okay, then I guess this will have to do.
Oh, my God. I love this man. I love him. I love him. I love him.
When we show this ad in China, the response is, lovely talk, now show me the money. So again, that's a prelude to say that the Chinese worldview is fundamentally different. And I have to explain this now in 3 charts. So again, I beg your indulgence. But if I were to summarize regarding the Chinese philosophical orientation and cultural orientation, regardless of whether you take a look at Confucianism, Taoism, Moism, legalism, there is one recurring theme that is as true today as it ever was, is that the only absolute evil in China is chaos. The only absolute good is stability. That which creates stability is positive, because in China, stability is a platform on which progress is constructed. So first you need to have stability, then Kowang Wu Xian, the urge to surge, the dragon in the heart is released. But first, stability. And again, every indigenous philosophical orientation reinforces this at different planes. If you take a look at Taoism, and again, I am no philosopher, but Taoism is about cosmological harmony. Some of you may have heard of something called the Bagua, the 8 elements that make up the entire universe. It explains everything from the stars in the sky to the sand in the sea. There are 4 masculine elements, 4 feminine elements, and they can be combined into no more than 64 different combinations. And an individual, if he is to move forward in life, he needs to be in harmony with that which surrounds him, like water flowing forward. That will only happen if he assumes the shape of that which surrounds him. So Taoism is about stability. It is about cosmological order and the imperative that a person is in alignment with it. And Confucianism, Rujia Shohui, Rujia, it is difficult to operate in China without a basic grasp or appreciation of the Confucian worldview. Without whipping up a mathematical lather or algebraic confusion, there's something called the Wulun, Lun. Am I getting the tones right? The second tone, I believe, not Lun. The 5 key relationships that make up all ordered society, between father to son, husband to wife, older brother to younger brother, friend to friend, and ruler to ruled. The key point of this is that in China, today as in yesterday, individuals do not exist independent of their obligations and responsibilities to other people. Yes, egos are huge. People want to be acknowledged for their contribution to society and their successes in a mandated social hierarchy, but the individual is not the basic productive unit of society. That remains once and for always the clan, the jadzu. So, this worldview in which the individual is not the basic productive unit of society yields colossal strengths, which explain, one, why China has unbroken history of 5,000 years, and two, why China has managed to stand up on the world stage as the 21st century opens, shoulder to shoulder with the United States as the #2 economic power. What are those strengths? Very quickly. First is the national mobilization of resources. We see this again and again. When disaster strikes, the nation comes together, whether it be the Guangzhou earthquake or whether it be industrial policy. When we take a look at the behemoths in China, whether it's about hire and its slow but sure takeover of the lower markets, when we take a look at Lenovo, they have 5,000 retail outlets in rural fringe cities. The Chinese know how to mobilize on a national level. The high-speed network, train network, everything is about national mobilization, top-down orchestration of growth that is incremental. Again, progress in China as a second strength is incremental. In China, rebellion, 叛逆, 反抗社会, is never something that yields dividends. Rebellion, crossing that red line of overt rebellion, is always destabilizing and therefore never really encouraged. So progress in China, regardless of whether you talk about currency appreciation rates, the relentless but incremental crawl up the value chain is always incremental. And when the fifth generation assumes power, you can be assured that its reform agenda is going to be incremental. To Westerners wanting to have a breakthrough, that will not happen. But perhaps, assuming that the leaders are enlightened, in 5 years we will look back amazed at the incremental progress that has happened. But China also has limitations that are reflected by its worldview. And what are those limitations? One is conformism that militates against innovation. Now, am I saying that Chinese cannot innovate? No, of course Chinese can innovate, but again, they innovate incrementally. In China, a society where there are omnipresent, often not articulated rules, breakthrough, challenge to convention, new ideas that are new orders, new models, happens very, very infrequently. And I don't have time to get into all of the detail of that here, but as a leader of an advertising agency for 16 years, my biggest challenge continues to be, despite the rise of the Ba Ling Ho, the Zhou Ling Ho, and soon the Ling Ling Ho, encouraging staff to express themselves in the face of hierarchy. Ideas, whether they exist on a corporate, industrial, or creative level, are the fruit of challenge, and challenge is inherently dangerous. Take a look at brands. Now, we get 45% of our revenue from local brands. We, J. Walter Thompson, in international advertising, a proud subsidiary of WPP, a noble holding company with high PE ratios. We get 45% of our revenue from local brands, but they still have not passed the inflection point of sustained innovation. They are still competing very much on scale and reassurance values, not on innovation or creating new models. Nike's Just Do It spirit, take a look at how the local competitors have taken this spirit and run with it. That's not innovation. One of those clients is ours, but I won't say which. And the second weakness is pervasive insecurity. China is not yet a civil society. Now, when I say civil, again, I must watch my terms. I am not saying civilized. I am saying civic in the sense of institutions designed to protect the economic interests of individuals, whether it be commercial courts, independent judiciaries, whether it be legislators that actually are empowered to make laws, whether it be the ability for people to challenge eminent domain abuses in a structured way. The key point is that Chinese people still have fear of something that is unexpected. And so this pervasive insecurity also keeps the Chinese from galloping forward in a way that we associate with breakthrough in the West. So, with that introduction, again, I'm sure that many of you are going to be twittering or tweeting many examples of how I'm wrong, but here's our view on what Chinese want. If I were to summarize the master tension in the heart of Chinese people, irrespective of level of society, accepting people who are struggling for survival, I would say that there is a unifying tension that brands have a fundamental role in resolving. And that universal tension is between projection on one hand and protection on the other. Projection of status, projection of power, projection of face, which is bold, which is now, which is me, which is conspicuous, versus protection of economic interests, protection against future uncertainty. One is very aggressive, the other is very conservative. You can call it standing out to fit in, or fitting in by standing out. These are the Terracotta Warriors, thousands and thousands of terracotta or of life-size statues carved to protect a very bold emperor, Shi Huangdi, after he died on what was inevitably to be a bumpy journey into the afterworld. You can call it ambition versus regimentation. Every China, there is a dragon waiting to come out. But that must come out in a way that is safe, that is in accordance to the rules of the game, the rules that must not be broken, lest you have a risk of being banished to the land of outcasts. So, projection. This is projection. Please play. Up in the air. In first class. Volume up, please. Larger than life vistas. In public, dripping with luxury, very strong women with diamonds on the finger and glorious shining hair shots. Larger than life goals, my goals, the nation's goals. China is great, so I am great. Forging and stepping in the corridors of power with confidence but ready to defeat the enemies. Big, big back seats in all cars and many advertising shots with white horses. That's projection. Or you take common personal names, projection. We're all familiar with how Chinese people name their kids. You have the family name first, but then the first names are projections of the parents' aspirations for their kids. These are typically male names: open, morning sun, hero, shake, sun, power, forward, greatness, climb, courage, build the nation in the Cultural Revolution, or even apartment building addresses. I moved to Hong Kong in 1994. At that point, I was a young man. I have since swept into middle age, but I lived with limited income in a residence called Tycoon Court. I can guarantee you that in 1994, I was not a tycoon, and that building did not have a court. But here, even in just Shanghai, you have Peacock Dynasty, Gold Capital, and my very favorite, not Richgate, but the gathering of all heroes under heaven. This is projection. Protection feels very different. Projection is much more conservative. It's pulled back, it's looking over the shoulder. Let's play the projection snippet video. Fortune telling, so you can manage your fate. Palm reading, phrenology. Ping An, omens, amulets. Ping An, the definition of happiness. Balance, safety. Martial arts, which is always defensive, never aggressive. Anti-UV ray protection, a #1 skin benefit. Bad men everywhere. Religion is a balm against the uncertain. The forbidden city, built to protect with its moats, its walls, and its alignment with heaven. Or this is something that only happens in China. On the 10th floor of apartment buildings, you have bars on the outside to protect from, I don't know what, Spider-Man gone bad. This old television commercial, though I banned the word TVC, now I have to call them filmic expressions, is for John Hancock. Take a look at this, how it strikes the balance between forward movement through a dangerous world. It's not subtle. Please play.
人生长路，有多少艰难险阻？是恒康天安与你同行，生活跨越100年的历史和引领全球的实力，在你穿越风雨，一路安心到未来。一生守护，恒久安康。恒康天安人寿保险。
So, what are the 3 golden rules of marketing? Golden rule number 1, and this is the golden rule. This is the granddaddy of golden rules. In order for, because of the projection imperative, because of limited resources and the protective buying instinct, in order to charge a price premium, in order to have higher margins, you have to maximize public consumption. Any good that is consumed in private will suffer much lower margins. If you are able to maximize public consumption, you can increase your price. So this explains, even for something with a minimal out-of-pocket price premium, Pepsi, the success of the most broad-spread internet campaign ever in China history, and that was Pepsi's Get on the Can Challenge. Long story short, in order to have an opportunity to emblazon their face on a Pepsi can, 750 million people participated in this challenge. But this means that status brands, regardless of whether they are luxury brands, whether they're lifestyle brands, or whether they're even daily brands such as Starbucks or Johnny Walker, are able to command price premiums. Luxury brand in China, we all know the trends, 50% year-on-year growth, and no matter what happens to tariffs, no matter what percentage is bought in Hong Kong or in Paris, and has anybody been to Paris recently during Golden Week, luxury plays a fundamental role in Chinese lives. This is not about superficial consumption. This is not about self-indulgence, but luxury brands in China are tools of advancement in life. Luxury plays a role in people's ability to demonstrate that they're going to play the game, demonstrate their progress in achieving success, and then at the top of the socioeconomic pyramid, the ability to be a connoisseur, master and commander of everything that is below. This is, of course, a much more nuanced topic, but luxury brands command price premiums, and that is why China has the largest youth luxury market, and that is why China has the only market in the world where men consume more luxury than women, and this is because luxury is used for trust facilitation in a professional environment. But Starbucks coffee performed the Houdini act of marketing in China. By the end of 2014, Starbucks will have 1,500 stores at price points higher than the United States. And how did they do this in a country that doesn't like to drink coffee? Well, they abandoned a little bit Howard Schultz's third space, this site of private indulgence in between work and the office, and they turned stores, which are bigger, boast broader menus, into gathering sites of professional elites, people that want to proclaim their affiliation with new generation success. Haagen-Dazs is the same thing. I don't know one Chinese person that is willing to pay 60 renminbi for a pint of ice cream to go and watch it at home in front of an illegal DVD. It's not going to happen. That is why Starbucks has 550, Häagen-Dazs has 550 parlors. So new generation young guys can go and impress a girl on a date with this $30 scoop of, very small scoop of ice cream. But this is all about changing business models to conform to the public consumption imperative. Mobile phones, regardless of whether Google is going to rise, regardless if Apple is going to fall, the leading mobile brands at a 250% cost of goods advantage over local brands are always the leading brands because they are surrogate identities. People put them on the table to express who they are and what their aspirations are. But on the other hand, people make mistakes because they don't understand the golden rule of public consumption. Ikea used to have 2 stores in China. In Shanghai, it was the world's largest store in terms of footfall, but it had the lowest per customer sales. It wasn't until that they lowered the cost of goods while still maintaining the aspiration of design inspiration that they were able to expand. So the reconfiguration of the price-value equation was fundamental for IKEA's expansion in China. Sony's Handycam boasts a 53% market share because the Handycam is brandished in public. But the Bravia television set has under 5% because inside the home, it is much more difficult to charge a price premium. Am I saying that nothing can be expensive in the home? No, but it's a much harder journey. Siemens now has a 20% share of the refrigerator market, but notice that the refrigerator is something that can be pointed to, and people can see it and notice it. Let me just play again another VSOP ad that's a little bit, seems very Western in terms of individualistic, but in the end, he conforms to social imperatives of external acknowledgement. Let's play the VSOP ad. Very cool guy who defines his own identity.
He's got
the girl, he's got a successful business, that's just how he is. Individualism needs to be expressed in a public context, and this leads to the second rule of marketing in China. The product is a means to an end, not an end in itself. And what this means is that in a context where life is very competitive, benefits need to be externalized. They need to be placed in a societal context. So again, let's get back to the diamonds. Let me play you a DTC, a De Beers ad that was shot in China. It feels very different from its Western equivalent. I have to translate this a little bit. The guy and the girl are at a very expensive resort. She looks up at the moon and she says, "The moon is so beautiful." Chinese women like round things. And then the guy says, yes, it's beautiful, but he says, "I'll go get it for you." So he dives into the pool, and then slowly, slowly he rises, not with the moon, but with something even better. 5 months of his salary. Please play.
多美的月亮啊！
喜欢吗？我摘给你。为了你，
For
一
you,
切都可能。
anything is
钻
possible.
石恒久
Love
远，
equals
一颗
commitment that
永
is
流传。
demonstrated, externalized benefits. This is a quintessential car ad. Sports cars in China are never going to be big. This idea of the power of the machine going through the man's body, this, excuse my French, testosterone release, is a very niche benefit. Instead, cars are tools that open doors. Let's take a look at a classic Passat commercial. It's teaching you the rules of success. more horses.
帕萨特，成就明天。
Or the prevalence of early MBA courses. This is externalization of benefit. Or elegance as a tool that helps women open doors gently without sacrificing her elegance and aplomb. But this externalization of benefits is not just for the middle class, it's also for the mass market. People also want to move forward in society, but the context is a little bit more narrow. Here is, excuse me, a filmic expression of a rural market detergent commercial. The kid is put on stage, and the mother at the end of it is appreciated and applauded for her conforming to the role of smart mother. Here, please take a look. Tomorrow there's a performance. New clothes? Mom, don't worry. Tomorrow you'll be a little swan. Oh, she really does look like a little swan. Did you buy new clothes? No. It's new Feng Cao detergent. Brings clothes back like new. Externalization of benefit. And the final rule is reassurance. We need to understand that in an era of rampant safety concerns, the role of brands first and foremost is to reassure. Reassure on both a physical level, which is why Safeguard is the #1 brand, guarding against germs in the shower, which is why anything that gets ingested into the mouth or onto the head requires a stamp of approval for a reputable central government authority. Reassurance is king. This is why Costco, the food manufacturer that was very unknown as a brand until the melamine crisis 4 years ago, went from 4% awareness to 64% awareness with this corporate campaign that talks about industry chain management. Not sexy stuff, but it speaks to the reassurance that is required. This is also, reassurance is important on an emotional level, a face level. That explains the prevalence of the VIP card. Again, resolving the conflict between protection and projection. Most Chinese people have 1, maybe 2 credit cards, but everybody has a stack of VIP cards, or VVI cards, or VVVIP cards, or V-cubed cards. You walk into any institution, any establishment, it can be a restaurant, it can be a newspaper stand, it can be a massage parlor, both the good kind and the not so good kind, and a guy is gonna come in and say, I am a very important person. Can I have a discount now, please? Again, this is about reassurance of face. And the retail scene, of course, needs to be developed so that face is maximized. And I'm sorry for not having the time to get into that. Now, I am 3 seconds over right now. Do you want 3 more minutes on the internet? Can I have 3 more minutes on the internet in China? Okay. Finally, the internet is changing China mostly for the good. How is that happening? This is very obvious to anybody who's lived in China, but the internet is a blank canvas of self-expression. There is a new world of lifestyle opportunities, both the illicit kind and the not illicit kind. And by the way, anything that does not involve any challenge to power is pretty much allowed in China online. I've heard that there is a pornography scene on there that is quite spicy. But why is it so important? Why is it so important? Why are internet bars the size of football fields? It's because internet is more than just communication. Internet, in a society in which offline expression is extremely limited, is a nirvana of self-expression. So the people that are on the web aren't just web users, they are citizens of the internet. They are netizens, they are Wangmings, and they stand up and they assert who they are. Because the internet gives people a platform to shine in a way that is safe, shielded by avatars, shielded by anonymity. So narcissism is quite acceptable. It's even more alluring than Buddhism on the internet. Stars can be created because you have talent. This is a couple of years ago. Now these guys called the dorm room boys are wealthier than practically any of us here because they are spokespeople for Pepsi and last year Motorola because they had an idea. Please play, and they broadcast it from the safety of their college room without getting out onto the street. Please play. Boom, success. Fangke. Again, Fangke is liberating self-expression in a way that is commercially beneficial to both retailer and consumer. The brand idea here is I am Fangke, 我是 Fangke. And what do? They enable young people to model clothes, tag their clothes, open their own e-commerce store, and if somebody buys clothes that in advertising they have tagged, the person gets a cut of the revenue. So this, again, is about self-expression that makes money, always the holy grail of conflict resolution. 3 is connect like-minded mavericks. In China, you can see that the popular music scene is relatively tame, cotton candy pop, but on the internet, Converse, the brand idea of Converse is all about originality. They have sponsored an on-the-bus band tour for hard rock lovers, something that is very niche. So they've been able to reinforce a niche positioning because people come together to express their differentiation. So through online tours, videos, song sharing, etc., there is a new community that is formed by people that wouldn't have the courage to do it offline. E-commerce, I'm sure you've all talked about today quite a bit, but in third-tier cities and fourth-tier cities, it is truly a revolution, with Taobao really closing the gap between bricks and mortar options, which really don't exist so professionally in lower-tier cities, and a world of shopping options. So the transparency and the liberation and the empowerment that comes from e-commerce is much more than convenience. It's access to a brave new world. And of course, the internet is helping to narrow the chasm between the rulers and the ruled. This microblog posting from Weibo was after the train crash 2 years ago, but the key point is that within 24 hours, 24 million tweets about the train crash were sent, sending a very clear message to the government. And I might add that when the Chinese talk about democracy, they are not talking about representative democracy, Jeffersonian democracy, of the people, by the people, for the people. When the Chinese talk about democracy, they're talking about transparency, efficiency, institutionalization. So the very concept of democracy is different, and the internet has a hugely important role in helping Chinese realize their aspirations to a more effective relationship with government. But of course, revolution is a very strong word. Google came and made many, many mistakes, assuming what Chinese people were looking for on the internet, and they failed in quite a unfortunate way, because in China, free expression is still mission impossible. The internet and the windows and the breadth and the width and the depth exists courtesy of a government, benign patriarchal government. So it will evolve as the society and the government think that is appropriate for it to evolve. So, recapping very quickly, I've said that we believe that the Chinese worldview is still very different from that of the West. The individual is not the basic productive unit of society. It remains the clan. So the individual's relationship with society needs to be reinforced through brands and media. Chinese strengths, this worldview translates into, are very distinct: nationalization of resources, application, we didn't talk about this, of foreign strengths in a Chinese context, and incremental progression to keep things stable. Chinese limitations are also there, and that means that China and the West never need to compete directly. Conformism that militates against genuine breakthrough innovation in a civil society that still does not protect economic interests, and we translated that into 3 golden rules. Public consumption is required to justify a price premium. Relatedly, the product is always a means to an end. Product benefits need to be externalized in a social context. And finally, both on a social level and a functional level and a safety level, brands are for reassurance. And before we touch the heart, we have to make sure that we also reassure. Thank you very much. Sorry I went over.
Thank you, Tom Doctoroff.